Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's always a pleasure being here, speaking, talking about the good news that once touched us, but because we didn't have the much knowledge, especially emotional, we are going through so many reincarnations, trying to understand the necessity to build something within. We are going to talk about this journey that humanity made during the course of centuries, during the course of millennia. And we brought sources from the Spirit's book, Good News, 2,000 years ago, the book Plenitude, Find Peace and Health, Living Spring, and The Way, the Truth, and the Life. And you can find all the sources and the authors, the Spirit's guides that inspire those mediums right in the first slide. So, since ancient times, humanity has tried to find God within stone temples. Monumental works were built where human ingenuity was magnificent, showing us how the wing of human intellect had already developed. As an example, we will see the Hebrew people building the Temple of Jerusalem. And of course, we're going to find so many examples, but we're going to focus on this specifically. Just to bring you historical points about this very specific temple, and I gather a few informations in the coming slides, so you can see this trajectory of humanity trying to find God inside of a structure made of material elements. It maybe resembles our process, our evolutional process, coming from the mineral, trying to achieve the angelical state. And right in the beginning, we still don't understanding exactly this God that it's around the whole universe, that not only outside, but inside of our hearts, humanity, try to find a location, a specific place, so they can gather, just like us over here, and try to discuss and understand the teachings of the Almighty. This love, this law of love that we are still grasping, trying to understand, and maybe sometimes finding the obstacles outside. It's actually they are inside of us in this pathway to redemption, in this pathway to life. As I mentioned, we are going to bring that specific example. We're going to see the first temple of Jerusalem. It refers to the two religious structures that served as the central places of worship for Israelites and Jews on the modern-day Temple Mount in the old city of Jerusalem. The first temple was built around like the 10th century before the Christian era, during the reign of the King Solomon, the son of David. Many centuries has passed, and we see in 587, around this time, before the Christian era, one of the kings from the Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar. I know how to spell this name in Portuguese, but in English, you guys have to have compassion, because I know it's very difficult to say Nebuchadnezzar, Nabucodonosor in Portuguese and Spanish. So he sieged Jerusalem around that epoch, at that time, and the temple was completely destroyed. Many centuries pass, and then we're going to see the second temple, the second tentative to rebuild the temple. We're going to see Herod the Great, which is not Jewish, but trying to make amends with the Jewish people and try to get their approval, he initiated the reconstruction, the remodeling of the same temple, the Temple of Jerusalem. In its last phase, it was enhanced by Herod the Great, and the result being later called Herod Temple. Well, you can find this information in Wikipedia, in the Britannica Encyclopedia, and you're going to find much more information about this process of rebuilding, destruction, rebuilding again, this temple made of stone. But if you visit the book that recently was translated psychographed by the medium Francisco Cândido Xavier and dictated by the spirit Humberto de Campos, the book by the name Good News, we're going to see a chapter number 3, a very interesting dialogue that I'm going to get a few portions of this dialogue when Jesus, around the year 30, in front of the Temple of Jerusalem, find himself a few priests found himself like looking at the temple, and one of them approached him. His name was Hannah. Approached him and developed some kind of conversation that maybe is the core of the whole lecture of ourselves that we are here trying to share with you. This gentleman, this priest, Hannah, asked Jesus, "What is your business in Jerusalem, Galileo?" And Jesus replied, "Passing through, seeking the founding of the kingdom of God." And then Hannah replied to him, "The kingdom of God? And what do you think there might be?" And Jesus replied, "The kingdom of God is the divine work in human heart." Of course, he didn't understand the profound speech and the profound thought of Jesus. And he kept replying, trying to establish argumentation, a little bothered by the simplicity, the magnitude, the energy, everything that Jesus was bringing in simply being there in front of the temple. And who is going to help you with such a hard task? Who are your followers and companions? Have you perchance acquired the support of some renowned prince to assist you with your plans? And Jesus replied, "My companions will come from far and wide." And the conversation keep going. And once again, Jesus says, "Priest," talking about the construction of this inner temple, the temple of the heart, says like, "I know love and truth. I know the will of my Father who is in heaven." And then the priest step away from that situation, a little bothered with his heart full of pride, he didn't understand exactly what Jesus was trying to explain and bring to that priest. That of course, and even nowadays, we still lack understanding to see exactly what is this construction needs to be done within. What is the necessity, even though we have here, of course, we have walls, we have ceilings, we have all these equipments, because of course this is a necessity. We are gathering here trying to discuss all these points so one day this temple can be within our hearts, no matter where we are, and spreading something that 2,000 years has passed and we still are trying to grasp. Well, Jesus, a few years passed on, and again in front of the temple of Jerusalem, one of his followers leaving the temple with him, they were so admired, so impacted by the monstrosity of the temple, looking at the architectural project, and they replied to Jesus, "Look at that, so beautiful." And Jesus mentioned, "Do you see all these things? Truly I tell you, not one stone here will be left on another. Everyone will be thrown down." They didn't understand, and it seems impossible, that monstrosity, that beautiful project being completely put down, like completely destroyed. But we're going to see, again, more historical points, and we're going to see in the book 2,000 years ago, psychographed by Francisco Cândido Xavier, dictated by the Spirit Emmanuel, this fact about on the 70, the Christian era, we see this event, the First Jewish-Roman War, in which the Roman army led by Titus, son of the Emperor Vespasian, besieged Jerusalem, the center of Jewish rebel resistance in Roman province of Judea. And the destructions of Jerusalem marked a major turning point in Jewish history. We're going to see one of the chapters of the book. This is one picture. Of course, this is a painting of the destructions of the temple. But we're going to see on chapter 8, on the book 2,000 years ago, the chapter named Amid the Destruction of Jerusalem. We're going to see Publius Lentulus, which was a Roman senator advising the Emperor Vespasian and helping his son Titus with information regarding the Jews. And this led at the end to the destruction of the temple in the year 70, around this time. It's a very interesting information that we're going to see coherent information with the historical facts. Years has passed, centuries, and the simplicity of the idea of the Christianity, simple Christianity, without the necessity to building this monstrosity, this monstrous temples, has passed. In one specific moment, when this the Christian faith was spreading in such a way, even through the Roman Empire, we're going to find one of the emperors, Constantine I, he was like right in the midst of a battle from the west to the east. You're going to see the emperor being divided in two portions. And one of the dreams that Constantine first had was with a cross, with fire, and he saw the cross written in hoc signo vinces. This is in Latin. Among the sign, you will win. And he thought that was like maybe an inspiration from this Christ that he didn't know. And from that specific moment, he asked to all his soldiers to paint a cross in all the shields, all the swords, all the flags. And by the way, he won the battle. It says like, maybe it was this God that they call Christ, that helped me to win the war. From that day, Constantine became a Christian. Not a Christian as we know, but he established, now Christianity, it's no longer being persecuted. And time has passed. We're going to see a little more time. The other emperor following Constantine, Theodosius, in the Council of Nicaea, establishing that the official religion of the Roman Empire was Christianity. And here's the problem. Exactly that moment we see that the problems start. Because we put like our ego, our necessity of power, our difficulties to deal with this simplicity, with the simple message of Christ, and we put together state and religion, and so many atrocities were proclaimed, too many wars, the Crusades, so many problems as was occurring because of this connection. They didn't understand very well Christianity. And then the Catholic Church was established by the official religion of the Roman Empire, and you all know exactly what happened. So many temples were built. The Gothic architectures was trying to find something, building something marvelous, so they can create such an impact on people when get into all these temples, because the monstrosity in a certain way makes the ones ahead of the church as like the only connection with the Creator. And then we see so many problems. We kind of like stepping away, walking away from the simplicity of the first 300 years, when the followers of Christ understood the necessity of bringing simplicity to building a temple within. Even though they don't have any place to hide, any place to profess their faith, the temple of the heart was actually the necessity to being built. But humanity went in a different direction. And we see around 12th century, the Christ of God invoking, if I can use this expression, to one of his disciples from the past, John Evangelist, born in Assisi, right in the heart of Italy, to try to break this pattern and to bring again the simplicity of the church. Thus, by the determination of the Christ of God, John the Evangelist would be reborn in the city of Assisi, in the region of Umbria, in the heart of Italy, in the year of 1182, under the name of Giovanni di Pietro de Bernardone. He was the son of Pietro de Bernardone, Peter Bernardone, a rich merchant of silk, and Pia Pica de Bourlemont, a woman from a noble family from the region of Provence in France. And in homage to France, where he had many businesses, his father, Pietro de Bernardone, changed his name to Francesco, Francis, as he was in the country when his son was born. And the people nicknamed him Francesco, the Frenchman, even though at baptism he was given the name Giovanni, John. Many of us know the story of this boy. In the beginning, born in a very wealthy family, spending money, being a playboy of the era at that moment. But something was trying to find. He has an empty heart, and deep within, he had the necessity to build something much more profound inside of his heart. It was in one specific moment, he was in this church of San Damiano, completely destroyed, before the cross, very simple cross, and he heard in his ears, Francesco, rebuild my church. He thought it was a material church. He thought it was a church made of stones, a temple made of stones, and he initiated a rebuilding the church of San Damiano. But few years has passed, and he didn't know that rebuilding that little church, he was at the same time rebuilding a church in the heart of the ones that follow him, and disseminating the message again that Christ is one of the most beautiful moments of religiosity. St. Francis of Assisi impact our lives nowadays. And we're going to see in the book, the Spirit's book, the Prolegons, in the 4 words of that book, the first spirit that signed the Spirit's book was St. Francis of Assisi. following St. Augustine. So he was one of the Spirit, coming back as St. Francis of John Evangelist, coming back as St. Francis of Assisi, because he was born in Assisi, and then again at the codification, signing the book, participating of the book, the Spirit's book, one of the Spirits responsible for the codification. The life of St. Francis of Assisi, and especially his teachings, trying to imitate Christ, was so profound that inspired Francisco Cândido Xavier and Emmanuel bring him in the book, The Way, the Truth, and the Life, a message right in the beginning on the interpretations of the Gospels, something that we need to try to follow and try to establish inside of our hearts. Because Christ, was something that St. Francis of Assisi was preaching from that day on, that Christ does not draw a line between church and workplace. The whole earth is simultaneously his prayer altar, and his work arena. By praising him in the churches while denying him in the streets, we have become shipwrecked 1,000 times due to our own fault. However, any place can be consecrated to divine service. Many disciples in the various Christian denominations have gotten involved in theological investigations, transforming the Lord's teachings into a dead relic of altars of stone. This message, a portion of this message, was received in the city, in the heart of Minas Gerais, Pedro Leopoldo, September 2nd, 1948. The message goes on because it's beautiful and worth reading and reflecting about. It says, nevertheless, Christ hopes that all of us may make his gospel of love and wisdom a prayer companion, a textbook for our daily learning experience, an inspiring source for our humblest actions in our daily work, and a code of good manners for fraternal interaction. On the book Living Spring, on the chapter 93, Paul sent a letter to the community, to the Hebrew, on chapter 13 and 10. And he mentioned that we have an inner altar inside of us. He says, to this day, we have built altars far and wide in praise of the Master and Lord, made of gold, marble, wood, and clay, adorned with perfumes, treasures, and flowers. We have raised sanctuaries and have called on the help of art in adding artificial illumination and external beauty. As soon as the monument to faith is finished, we get down on our knees in prayer and search for divine inspiration. But look, let's pay attention what Emmanuel says afterwards. And in fact, every such activity is praiseworthy, even when we make the common mistake of forgetting those starving out on the street and focus on the pomp of worship, because love and gratitude to the power of heaven, even when wrongly expressed, deserve veneration. However, it is indispensable to grow into the greater life. The Master himself used the Samaritan woman to warn us that the time would come when the Father would be worshipped in spirit and in truth. Paul adds that we have an altar. The ultimate purpose of the temples of stone is to awaken our awareness, awaken Christians. However, act as self-priests, glorifying love when faced with hatred, peace when faced with strife, peace of mind when faced with trouble, good when faced with evil. Therefore, let us remember our inner altar, which we should consecrate to the divine power and to heavenly goodness. Coming to stone altars with a soul shut to the light and to the inspiration of the Master is the same as setting an impenetrable coffer of darkness out in the full light of the sun. The light waves continue to be light waves, but the darkness, it's not affected. Hence, let us present our oblations and sacrifice to the Lord by means of blessed gifts of love for our neighbor, thus worshiping the Lord on the altar of the heart, and let us proceed with the work we are all called to do. We're still struggling, trying to build, better saying, this inner altar inside of our hearts. I many times catch myself with a moment of prayer and reflection, trying to understand the frailty that I still have within. And even though this conflict that we all have in a certain degree, trying to see the past that still characterizes each and every one of us, but with the destination that we are trying to achieve. And just like, if you can make an analogy, the temple of stones that we still have inside of our hearts, sometimes our hearts are just like a stone, with the blindness eye to the suffering outside. And I'm not talking simply of like distributing foods and alms. I'm talking about sometimes opening your ears, opening your arms to the desperate ones, and sometimes need just a simple phone call, just a simple hug, just a simple smile. God doesn't expect us to be the priest of the priests. Of course, this is a process that's going to take time, but we only are going to see this temple being built stone by stone if we dedicate our lives to the charity as understood by Jesus, the benevolence towards the imperfections of others, indulgence towards everyone, and the forgiveness of the offenses. And this is something difficult sometimes to put in place, because sometimes we don't forgive ourselves. And this is the first step maybe to, even though we fall so many times, because we compare ourselves with these sublime pages of the Gospels and the Spiritist teachings, trying to see, my God, I am so far away from everything that I read. Sometimes I give lectures over here, trying to see, we got emotional, of course, the good spirits, of course, surrounding us, touch us, inspire us, but this doesn't mean that we are the letter. We are much more the postman, trying to deliver something that we try to put this inside. I don't know if it makes sense what I'm trying to say, because this conflict many times appears in our reflections. This morning I was thinking about my life. Forgive me if I'm going to give like a little portion of this lecture of my life. And I was with Andrea. She's the one that helped me putting all these slides, because my PowerPoint was a mess. It was like plain PowerPoint, plain text, and says like, you're not going to make any presentation. Please, Andrea, help me, because the English is poor. The capacity to deliver a message is poor. At least the PowerPoint has to be something that impacts them, and they pay attention at least to the slides. And she was so kind, rearranging, put the pictures, because actually The text, the content, it's exactly that. But she put in such a beautiful way and made me, I want to make you proud. She's giving a lecture at Bezerra de Menezes at this time, right now. And I was making this reflection, my prayer in the morning. And yes, in Brazil is Father's Day. And I was thinking about my life. And I thought about oh my God, we have so many conversations here, fraternal assistance, people come to us with so many dramas, so many problems, so many obstacles. And Andrea, our lives, of course we have certain problems. Of course, we are in a trial and expiation world, but nothing compared to the dramas and the problems that we see when we have a conversation, a fraternal conversation with so many friends. And I was so grateful for the peace that we are building inside of our home. I'm not talking about walls, bricks, roof, kitchen. I'm talking about a home with capital H. Something that needs to be built, rebuilt, re-examined, correct the trajectory every single day. So one day this inner altar that we all are expecting to build and residing inside of our hearts, it's not going to be only an hour or two at Conscious Living, or maybe in a church, maybe in a synagogue, or any temple of religious beliefs, but this temple that I'm going to carry wherever I am, trying not only to modify my life, but touching the lives of others and trying to copy the examples of so many that already learned how to live a better life. I am not talking about material life, because of course this is all will pass. As St. Francis of Assisi once, of course, was a very dramatic movement that he did, because the church was falling apart, building huge, immense temples, monumental temples, maybe to try to impact the others, the poor people, the others that come into that monstrosity. It says oh my God, someone behind the management of this temple have a direct connection with the Creator, which is not truth. The truth is the whole humanity can have this connection with the Creator. In the book, Finding Peace and Health, dictated by the spirit Joana de Angelis to the medium Divaldo Franco, on chapter 10, The Search for Inner Enlightenment, Joana brings us something. The kingdom of heaven lies within you, Jesus said. So self-discovery is necessary to find it, because we are all spiritual beings and not the physical forms that we need to evolve through experiences in the flesh. Inevitably, we all have to look inward, awakening to our inner reality and searching sentiments for the best and most efficient resources to free ourselves from the painful grip of the ego, necessary at one point, but enslaving later. Look how Joana makes this analysis. At one point, the ego was necessary. Mm-hmm. We have this process of evolution. Of course, let's dive into the past. Fear was something that drives all our actions, and the fear sometimes require, because of the law of self-preservation, sometimes the fear protecting us to get rid of this life and still keeping the march once we are in flesh. And sometimes the ego play a very important role, but not anymore, because we know that the real life, the true life, is the life of the spirit. Of course, the ego is still playing it drives our actions, definitely drive our actions. But now we know better what exactly, in which direction should we go and should we walk. Keep going with Joanna on the book Plenitude, on chapter 6. She brings altruism, one of the biggest, I think it's the biggest example of altruism. It says, like, when Jesus was on the cross, suffering from human ingratitude, he even assisted the thief who pled for his help, generously promising him the kingdom of heaven, which began to take hold in the thief's mind and heart from that moment on. When Jesus gave us this example, it just saying, no matter your past, no matter what your actions, what the faults, no matter what you did, you have something ahead of you. This kingdom of heaven that it's waiting for the courage of bringing ourselves, standing up, looking ahead, and looking at this inner transformation. So one day, as I mentioned before, this kingdom of the heart, the temple of the heart, can be built and no longer be a part of us. Much peace to all of you. Forgive my mistakes, the simplicity of the deliverer, and God bless you all, the one that following us through the internet.